Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the November 15th Town of Wareham Board of Selectmen meeting. May I have a roll call, please? You're muted.
You guys may like it when I'm muted. I may never get used to it. Present is Mr. Slavin, Mr. Chadwick, Mr. Bessie, Miss Whiteside, and Miss Wertz. We also have Mr. Bowen and Mr. Sullivan here, all present. And also on screen right now is guest Miss Nichols, who will present soon.
Thank you. May I have the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Slavin, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
God, indivisible.
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have some announcements. Mr. Chadwick.
Evening, everyone. In case you're wondering where I am right now, I'm actually with the Matt, Boyce, Marion, and Rochester's Explorer Post 3. We are all in Bedford Fire Meet, and I'm along just watching them all, and my son just joined, so that's why I'm here right now. I have a couple of announcements. First is calling all Wareham High School cheer and football alumni. Current Wareham High School cheerleaders are teaming up with CYE for a night at Splain Field. There will be snacks, 50/50 raffles, beer basket to give away. Be fun. Creation football players are going to gear and give him as well. That's going to be Saturday, November 26th at 10 a.m. Splain Field.
We lost him. Okay. Mr. Bessie, can you, oh, there he is again. You're back. You muted, Mr. Chadwick. We lost you for a second. You're muted.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Next one is the Wareham Tigers Cheer Athletics has now become its own nonprofit organization run by Mr. Damon Solomon. Congratulations. And this November 20 is now hosts cheer and dance at 7 p.m. at Wareham Elementary School at 3 Mine Ave in Wareham, Mass. Join us for the showcase showing our amazing local cheerleaders and dancers, tumbling and jump contest too. Performance includes Wareham High School Cheer Up Cape Tech Cheer Dance Innovation VIP, all WTA sideline cheer teams, and all WTA comp cheer teams. And is Wareham Tigers one day off and sandwich upcoming Sunday at 10 a.m. for the Super Bowl. It's for sandwich.
Okay. Thank you. It was very garbled, so I'm not sure how much of that we really heard, to be honest with you. Mr. Bessie? Oh, you still going, Mr. Chadwick? Mr. Bessie, can you announcements? Any?
I don't have any tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Ms. Wertz? You're muted.
It's less an announcement and just an observation. I just wanted to say it was so beneficial for me to meet the various people who are out on Veterans Day and got to talk with them. I also would say I actually forgot that the town hall wasn't open on Thursday, and I went down and I actually met 7 or 8 other people who weren't aware of it. We had a good conversation, and then several other people contacted me at the veterans event saying they didn't were aware that the town hall wasn't open. So I'd like to say thank you to all of them for spending great conversation time with me. And I'm sorry if we didn't put a sign up to let everyone know.
That's it?
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Slavin.
Okay. I believe we've been closed as far as town hall on Fridays for quite a while now.
It's Thursday she's talking about.
I understand. Okay, one announcement we have here, January 10th, second Tuesday in January. Deadline for applying for Community Preservation Act funds, CPA. Forms are available on the Wareham website under Boards and Community Preservation Committee. Next, the VFW Dudley L. Brown Post 2846 and the auxiliary, they have a clothing drive. And here we go. We would love to get assistance from members of our community and local businesses to help us collect as many coats, jackets, hats, scarves, boots, and gloves as possible. It'll be November 19th, Saturday, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Drop-off location is 4 Gibbs Ballpark Road, Wareham, Mass. And the items will be for men and women, new or gently used. Next, we have again from the Dudley Brown Post and auxiliary, free veterans dinner, honoring our veterans, Saturday, November 19th, onset VFW from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Turkey giveaway available to any veteran, senior, or family in need this holiday season while supplies last. Turkeys are donated by Walmart, Trade Routes, and Coast Cannabis. And that's all I have for that.
Okay, thank you. I have a few. I just want to remind people that there is a leash law for dogs in this town. I am hearing a lot about a lot of dogs that are running on bogs and through the woods and that kind of stuff. Also would like to remind people that the punts or dories which are left on town beaches need to be removed by December 1st, and all vessels need to be off their moorings by that time, town moorings as well. We know that the school is looking for school bus drivers. There's a bus parked right next to the fire station. So next time you drive by, see if it's something that you'd like to do on a part-time basis. We also have available the dump stickers. Municipal maintenance has them available. All you need to do is bring in your registration and yourself and your checkbook or cash, and they will give you your 2023 dump sticker. And remember that the prices stayed the same, which is great. December 3rd is a cruiser at Walmart and Target from 9 to 3, which is again part of how our community takes care of others. And then this one is a little bit longer. Wareham is a very generous community, especially around the holidays. Thanksgiving is next week, and I'd like to give you some information about the meals that are offered regularly by our community, as well as some special Thanksgiving meals being offered next week. On Wednesdays, St. Patrick's Church and High School from 3 to 7, there's a food pantry thanks to St. Vincent de Paul Society. The First Congregational Church at 11 Gibbs Avenue offers a free breakfast from 7 to 8:30 every Wednesday. On Thursdays, the Church of the Good Shepherd at 74 High Street offers a pickup meal from 4:30 in the afternoon. And once a month, that church also offers a food pantry from 2 to 4:30. On Thursdays and Saturdays from 9 to 11:30, Damien's Pantry provides groceries to those who have pre-registered. And there's an annual verification process. This Thanksgiving, Mr. Slavin already mentioned it, but at the VFW at Gibbs Ballpark Field from 11 to 3 for veterans, seniors, and families, there is a Thanksgiving dinner. On the 24th, the day before Thanksgiving, the Church of the Good Shepherd is offering a Thanksgiving meal provided by Turning Point. Reservations are required. Just call 508-295-2840 with your name and the number of people who will be joining you. The First Congregational Church is also offering a Thanksgiving meal that day starting at noon, and reservations are required. Call 508-295-1630. Also, the Buzzards Bay Eagles on Cohasset Avenue, Buzzards Bay, has a drive-through meal from 1 to 4 that same day. So you can see that our community is very willing and able to help those in need. I'm going to have part of this put up on our website just so that the regular meals that we offer, that the townspeople offer, will be available. And that's it. It is now 7:10. And oh, let me just double check. I have, if you're here because of the Key Club, could you raise your hand, please? Okay, I'm going to wait a few minutes on those to see if any other people show up. There are only 2 of you showing up right now. Okay, so we'll go on to the next item on the agenda. Ms. Nichols, we have a tax classification hearing at 7:10. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jackie Nichols. I'm the Director of Assessing. I'm here tonight to do the annual tax classification hearing. I do want to let you know that we've received the certification of values, so the vote tonight will stand. And I'd like to share my screen so you can see my presentation.
Okay, I think we need to actually open the hearing. May I have a motion to open
sorry.
the hearing, please?
Motion so made to open the hearing.
And is there a second to that, please?
Second.
Motion made to open the hearing and seconded. Is there any further discussion on opening the hearing? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Slavin,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes,
Chadwick.
Yes.
Bessie,
Yes.
and myself, yes, the hearing is now open. Would you introduce yourself again, please?
My name is Jackie Nichols. I'm the Director of Assessing.
You muted yourself unless you stopped talking.
I stopped talking for a minute.
Thank you. Okay,
I can't multitask that well.
okay.
This is the tax classification hearing that we do annually, and I apologize in advance. I am still dealing with some bronchial issues, so I'm short of breath. So every year we do the tax classification hearing with the sole purpose of choosing whether to split the tax rate or continue with a single tax rate for the town. The classes that we have here are basically our residential, includes single family condos, mobile homes, multifamilies, apartments, residential land, and the commercial, industrial, and personal property, or what you think they would be: office, retail, industrial, zone and manufacturing, commercial, industrial land, chapter land, and personal property, which is both business and second homes. The tax classification is to determine whether the town will utilize a single tax rate for all classes of property, or to split the rate, shifting the burden towards the commercial, industrial, and personal property from the residential class. Generally, we talk about the discussion starting at when the split is an 80% residential versus a 20% commercial, industrial, and personal property ratio. This is due to the fact that with a CIP share lower than 20%, any shift results in a very small benefit to the residential and a much larger burden for the CIP taxpayer without proper support from the tax base. As you can see, this year, we have not yet reached that threshold. As a matter of fact, we have gone higher in the residential ratio than we were over the past several years, well, many years. Our CIP to residential ratios have remained relatively steady. For fiscal 2023, our average single-family residential value has risen to $378,000. Our average commercial value is $724,000, and our average industrial is $764,000. I've rounded all of these numbers to the closest thousand for ease of me. Last year, our average single-family residential value was $323,000. So you can see it's gone up significantly. The commercial value was $716,000 and the industrial value was $694,000. I have used the average single-family residential and commercial value as the benchmarks when I illustrate what the tax shift would do below in the illustration. This chart shows what would happen if we shifted the tax rate from the residential to the commercial. Right now, the estimated residential rate and commercial rate, our single rate, is estimated to be $9.92. That is a decrease from $10.87 last year and is due to the increase in values. At the lowest shift at 1.1, the residential property would save $64, but their commercial bill would go up over $700. At the highest possible shift, 1.0, the residential property would save $329. The commercial bill would increase $3,591. And that's just a chart showing the difference in the increases that we just discussed. In summary, a split rate does not increase any revenue. It just simply shifts the tax burden. A shift would make Wareham less attractive to new development and small business relocation. It would impact summer cottage residents as their personal property taxes would increase. Many of the town's commercial properties are leased, and landlords typically pass the increase on to the tenants, which would impact our smaller businesses, which are typically locally owned. Business personal property would also be taxed at the higher commercial rate. Chapter land, including cranberry bogs, recreational land, and so forth, would be taxed at the higher commercial rate as well. I have included some community comparisons as it was requested before. And these are all of the towns that are, near to us. And it shows how many single family parcels there are. You can see Wareham at the very bottom has 9,475. And our average single family value as compared to those of us around for like Bourne, this is for 2022, by the way. Bourne was at 524 when we were at 323. Carver 387, Middleborough at 369. You can see the illustration here. And the single family tax bills ranged from $5,300 rounded to over $7,000, whereas we were at $3,500. We still have one of the lowest tax bills in the state. The average tax bill in the state for 2022 was $6,500. This is just a history of where we've been over the past few years. You can see that the values have steadily increased in all classes. I'll put this up on the website too, if you would like. And that's it.
Thank you. The record will show that Michelle Bissonette is actually attending the meeting as is required by law. she can hear us and see us. Are there any questions from any of my members? Please raise your hand. Did you raise your hand, Mr. Chadwick, or were you just waving? No, okay. No questions? Okay. I'm going to ask if there's anybody in the audience who would like to. No. Yeah, who would like to make a comment? You may in support of either keeping the rate the same one-on-one or splitting it. You may not comment on anything else. Is anybody who would like to comment on whether we leave the tax rate as is, the tax classification as it is? Please raise your hand. And if you would like to speak against that, please raise your hand. I see none. I will ask a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second,
Motion made to close the hearing. Is there any further discussion on the motion to close the hearing? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Slavin,
yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
Bessie,
Yes.
Chadwick,
Yes.
myself, yes. And now I will accept a motion.
I make a motion that we accept the 2023 tax program as presented by Jackie Nichols.
Ms. Nichols, would you like to restate that motion?
Yeah.
Yes, please. It's actually a little bit simpler, Tricia. I'm asking for a vote to keep the residential factor selected at 1.0.
Is that your motion, Ms. Wertz?
Yes, that's perfect.
Thank you. May I have a second to the motion?
Second, and a comment.
Yes, sir.
Because of COVID over the last couple of years, a lot of businesses in particular, are weakened quite a bit during this time, but not all, but most. And I think it's inappropriate at this particular point in time to put any burden on the business community right now. I would say we go back in a year, maybe no more than 2 years, and seriously take a look at this again. The savings, unless we go really to the maximum number, is really not going to benefit our residential component enough for the individuals to make that much of a difference compared to commercial right now.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to go with the rate as stated by Ms. Nichols. So any further discussion? Hearing none, I will go for a vote. Roll call vote. Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
Chadwick,
Yes.
Slavin,
Yes.
myself, yes, it is done. Thank you very much, Ms. Nichols.
You're very welcome. Again, I apologize for the windpipes.
That's okay. No problem at all.
Hope you feel better, Jackie.
Thank you. I'm getting there.
I know you are.
Okay, I do have to go back to announcements because a couple of the people that we had scheduled to talk to are here. If you are here as a member of the Key Club or who helped pick the trash up on the Key Club cleanup day, could you raise your hand, please? Mr. White, would you let Ms. Vieira and Mr. Stanton in as well, please? Thank you.
Judy, before we start, did we close the hearing?
Yes, we did.
Thank you. I missed it.
You
See,
said,
I know. Senior moment, I tell you.
okay. We have presentation for the Key Club members who went out of their way and walked up and down Minot Avenue and did their semi-annual cleanup. And with us this evening, we have Caleb Vieira, and we have Matt Stanton, who's the what do you call it? Leader of the Key Club program at the high school. Mr. Stanton, perhaps you could quickly just say what the Key Club represents.
Thank you, Ms. Buckeye. The Key Club is a community service-based organization. It's actually an international organization, and Wareham is a proud member of the New England and Bermuda district of Key Clubs. We're sponsored by the Bourne Wareham Kiwanis Club. It's one of the service learning programs associated with the Bourne Wareham Kiwanis. And we've had the proud distinction to be affiliated with the Don't Trash Wareham nonprofit group that was established quite a few years ago. And the Key Clubbers, like Caleb right there, they've been very determined to keep it going along Minot Avenue. They feel a great pride taking care of that one stretch of road in Wareham over the years. And the students themselves make sure that that is a priority among the many service projects that they do. So we truly appreciate the invitation tonight.
Thank you. I note that not everybody is here, so I'm going to read one of the certificates, and each one of you will be getting those, or I think we already sent them to you, Mr. Stanton, is that correct?
I have not received them yet, but I'll be sure to get them to the students.
Okay, great. So the certificate of recognition is awarded to, and then I'll read the names. Key Club was founded in 1925 by Kiwanis with the motto of caring, our way of life. The club focuses on leadership, character building, caring, and inclusiveness. We, the Board of Selectmen, would like to recognize and thank you for your commitment to beautifying the town of Wareham and keeping it clean, presented this 15th day of November 2022, and then signed by us. And that certificate is going to be given to Laura Clemens, Gisela Priestley, Aidan Dillon, Robert Gavin, and Caleb Vieira. Also to Ethan Cobb, who is not a member of the Key Club, but he did participate that day. So I just want to say thank you, young ladies and gentlemen, for doing the trash route. And unfortunately, I know that you filled an entire truckload up. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Stanton.
Thank you all very much. I'll be sure to pass on your wishes to the students.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay. I do have a certificate of recognition that I want to read into the record, but I do have some hearings that I want to get into, so we'll do that afterwards. I am going to ask for a motion to open the hearing for Scarlet Rose LLC, please.
Make a motion that we open the hearing for Scarlet Rose LLC for a change of license class.
There's a second to that motion.
Second,
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motion to open the hearing? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote to open the hearing. Mr. Slavin,
yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
and myself, yes, the hearing is now open. Before us, we have Michael Kilgard. I believe, and okay, we can't see you and we can't hear you. So I know you're there.
Muted. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. I
Great.
don't know why my video is not on.
That's okay. We can hear you.
Okay.
Would you like to address the board as to why you would like to go from a seasonal common vic to wines and malt to an annual common vic all alcohol beverage license?
Sure. Yeah. Well, we're open now. We've been open for 2 weeks. And a grand opening.
You're mumbling. You need to.
Can you hear me? How about that? Is that good?
Much better. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. We've been open for 2 weeks. It's been a great opening. It's been a steady flow of customers. Our hours are 11:30 to 9, except for Monday and Tuesday. We've got a great chef, 6 entrees and 12 appetizers. It's a small menu, but it's creative and always changing. We are bringing in some customers from out of town, some surrounding towns, which is great. That was kind of our goal. So it's just been going great. Has anybody been in yet, or?
I have
No.
a friend, that went there, I think the day of your grand opening, and called me up and told me how great the restaurant was.
Yeah.
And wonderful the food was. So thank you.
Yeah, it's been nothing but positive feedback. Yeah, so right now we're wine and beer only with 16 craft beers and a good selection of wines. And we just want to add a few cocktails to the menu. We never want to be that last stop for, 1 a.m. closing. We're closing at 9 o'clock. We're a dinner only type atmosphere. Yeah, that's really it. Just a few signature cocktails and to go with the wine and beer for, to increase the selection of drinks.
Thank you. Do any of my board members have a question of Mr. Kielgard? Please raise your hand. Yes, Mr. Slavin.
You have a neighbor behind you, which is the funeral home, and there has been some concerns, which I think you can answer for us tonight. As far as the trash barrel, the dumpster being exposed in the corner there next to his property as well.
Yeah, we're going to address that. We plan on installing a chain link gate, a double gate with the ribbons that stretch through so you can't see through to the dumpster.
I'm sure he'll appreciate that. And you have to make sure you keep it closed, nothing out around it.
Correct.
There is issues with pests, we'll call them, in the area there that will be attracted to the dumpster.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on behalf of this applicant? Please raise your hand. And if there's somebody in the audience who would like to speak against it, please raise your hand. I see none. Any other questions of Mr. Kielgard? You understand that this license would become effective January 1st?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Because you have already extended your seasonal through January 15th.
Correct.
Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure you understood that. May I have a motion to close the hearing, please?
So moved.
Second, I'll remember it this time.
Edible. May any further discussion on closing the hearing? Seeing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Absolutely, yes.
Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
and myself, yes. The hearing is now closed. I will accept a motion.
Make a motion.
Wait a
that-
second. We actually have two applicants for one liquor license available. Would you like to hold off on your voting until we've heard from the other applicant, which would be the 7:20 hearing?
I recommend that you handle it that way, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen.
I
So-
agree.
Yeah, okay. So I will now ask the applicants, I believe Mr. Levinson is here, Mr. Bezier. If you were here for the 7:20 hearing for WW Cranberry Highway, please raise your hand so that we can let you into the meeting. Mr. Levinson, Mr. Darling. Thank you. We will wait till Mr. Darling shows up. There he is. Okay, great. May I have a motion to open the hearing
Make
for,
a- Go ahead.
go
Make
ahead.
a motion that we open the hearing for an application for an annual packaged goods store wine and malt license for the AJC Store
No,
Inc.
no, we're at WW Cranberry Highway, Inc. We're at the 7:20.
I see it. Yeah, I'm sorry. Excuse
That would
me.
be-
So I make a motion, we open the hearing for WW Cranberry Highway Inc. DBA Water Whiz for all alcohol beverages license.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to open the hearing. Is there any further discussion on opening the hearing? Seeing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yeah.
myself, yes. The hearing is now open. Gentlemen, would you introduce yourself or yourselves and speak to your application, please?
Sure.
Mr. Levinson?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. With me in the hearing right now is David Darling and Chris Bezier. I'm an attorney, Mike Levinson for the record, Brainsky Levinson LLC and offices in Seekonk, Massachusetts. We're before you tonight with respect to an on-premises all alcohol liquor license application for the Waterwiz property. I'm sure most of you are familiar with what the Waterwiz property is. It's an institution, an icon in your town. To give you some background, I know in the application there was a couple different lots and trying to piece it together what we've done here. Back in May of 2020, Mr. Darling's, the applicant company owned by Mr. Darling, which is WW Cranberry Highway Inc., purchased the business assets and operations of the Waterwiz Water Park. Contemporaneous with that, another sister company owned by Mr. Darling, 3031 Cranberry Highway LLC, purchased the real estate out there. The application before you tonight is only for the main locus, which is 3031 Cranberry Highway. The other two ancillary lots he purchased at the time are just parking lots that are not part of this application. Additionally, in August, he purchased another property that abuts it. It's the 3025 Cranberry Highway, which is the Wendy's property, which eventually down the road he wants to develop into some type of commissary or snack shack to be able to serve food products and if granted alcohol products for consumption on site. The application is to allow alcoholic beverages, domestic and imported beers and, tropical drinks, cocktails that you'd see at a typical park like this to be sold to patrons and be consumed on the premises. They're anticipating only being done in kiosks or snack shacks around the property. And then also potentially limited service in certain areas such as the cabanas or other reserved seating. It wouldn't be general service for the entire area. They are not going to allow consumption or sale of alcoholic beverages on any water slides or any type of pool facility or anything along those lines. Mr. Bizier, who's the manager of record, he's the proposed manager of record. He's the general manager of Waterwiz, and he's not going to be an absentee manager. He's going to be on site regularly. He works, 40, 50 hours a week there. And he'll be the one implementing and making sure the policies and protocols of, service for people are of age, and also there's no overconsumption or overservice. I know this is a unique application. There's no other water park in your town. There's only a few in Massachusetts, but it's not unprecedented. There's actually other water parks in Massachusetts that have liquor licenses such as this. There's one up the road from where you are right now in Hyannis, the Cape Cod Resort, which has an indoor water park. They have a liquor license. And probably the closest corollary to what we have to Waterwiz facility is the Six Flags New England facility out in Agawam, Massachusetts, which has a pendant water park facility. I think it's called Hurricane Harbor, but please don't quote me on that. That facility opens up a couple months out of the year for a shortened season, allowing people to ride water slides and deal with water features. They have a liquor license as well that allows them to have little tiki huts that they sell, margaritas and pina coladas, different types of beer products to people who go to facilities like this. What this will allow Mr. Darling and his companies to do, he made a substantial investment in purchasing this property. He wants to grow it and sort of bring it into more of a contemporary and make it more of a premier vacation destination in your area. The liquor license would allow them to close that gap. It would allow them to be able to have a facility whereby people could bring their children, have the children go in the water facilities and also allow, the parents to have a beer or wine similar to what you have in another situation or other park like this throughout the Commonwealth. We'd ask for the on-premises license to be granted, allowing it for both 3031 Cranberry Highway and 3025 Cranberry Highway. And we'd, open up to any questions if you guys have any questions or concerns regarding our application.
That is your presentation, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Bessie, do you have anyone who has any questions, please raise your hand. Mr. Chadwick.
All right, so I've been out to Hurricane, whatever it's called, out at Six Flags many a times. And I guess this might be a silly question, but my thought process on this is their prices for drinks out there are astronomical. So you don't really see anybody getting pretty much trashed out there. So my question more or less to you is I'm hoping if this is granted to you, that you would be in the same ballpark and keeping those prices extremely high. So we're not going to be spending resources like police and EMS going there for those types of situations.
Well, I'll let Mr. Darling and Mr. Bizier talk about the potential business plan. I can tell you though that everyone who's touching the alcohol will obviously be tips trained, making sure they're not serving anyone who is trashed, using your term, Mr. Chadwick, making sure that doesn't happen. And not only that, it's also I think the way this is going to be sold, it's not going to be like at a bar where anyone can just take a drink and go anywhere. It's going to be in certain areas. And once again, no one's going to be going down the water slides with a pina colada or something like that. I think it is going to be controlled. David, I'll let you speak to the marketing.
Yes,
Is that Mr. Darling or is that Mr. Bezier?
I'm David Darling, with Mr. Bizier as well. Chris Bizier, we're together. Sorry, we're at an industry trade show, so we're not local to Massachusetts at this time. As far as the consumption of alcohol goes, obviously it will be within the parameters of the ABCC and obviously within our parameters of our risk of liability and things like that. So it's not going to be something we want to consume. We want people consuming large volumes of. It's an added amenity where it'll kind of be more of a I guess, like a frozen cocktail type of drink and a fancy cup with a souvenir cup or something like that, where the prices aren't going to be $2 draft beers or anything like that.
Thank you. Does that answer
Thank
your
you.
question, Mr. Chadwick?
Yes, it does. It makes me a
Okay.
little
Do you have
happier
any other
about it.
questions, sir? No.
Not at this time,
Anybody else
thank
have
you.
any questions? Raise your hand, Ms. Wertz.
Gentlemen, what's the typical head count for a day at your park? How many people are in it, basically?
Mr. Darling, can you answer that question?
Yes, we have around 17 and change. We have a max capacity of around 1,800. And I think an average day is 12 to 1,300 on average.
Thank you.
Okay. I look at where your facility is and have lots of family who have enjoyed playing at your facility, quote unquote. But when looking at it from alcohol beverage vision, I looked at stuff like Great Wolf Lodge, and they basically have their alcohol served in a restaurant. I looked at the Cape Codder Water Park in Hyannis, and they serve, they say, alcohol while they're in the Gazelle Cafe. They don't say anything about serving it while walking around. I look at the Water Park of New England. They say no containers allowed in, and only what you will buy at their Breezeway Gull and Bar, which they call refreshing beverages. I also have spent a lot of my life down in Tampa, so lots of time at Disney World and Busch Gardens. Disney World has slowly allowed walking alcohol. And they do have it through all their parks. They don't let it in the Magic Kingdom where children are. When you look at Busch Gardens, they used to just give out free beer. And over the years, they give out 3 little test cups and 1 location. And then in anything else, you can buy either beer or wine in a restaurant when you're eating. So
Ms. Wertz, you're
Yeah.
asking them a question, please.
So when I'm asking my question, that's what I'm comparing what you want to do with, and I'd like to understand how you compare to that and how you see it differently.
Mr. Darling, if you choose to answer.
Yes, it's going to be very similar in the sense that we are going to have food areas that we will have, or we have a bar area that would be serve these type of tropical type of drinks, vacation-y kind of drinks. We don't, obviously with being a water park and with pool, there won't be any glass or anything like that allowed anywhere near anything. You have to, it all has to be plastic type of containers. Right now we do our best to do bag checks. We do our best to keep alcohol out of the park. It makes its way in, and so I think it's going to make its way in whether we serve it. Hopefully we can contain it a little bit better when we're in control of it to some degree. And I feel like that we're only going to have particular locations that are restaurant style. We don't really have a restaurant, so it's maybe a food service our Billy's Bait Shop, for instance, and there might be a secondary bar type of facility that will serve some snacks as well as, and it's going to be more of a adult orientated area. But obviously we're not going to want kids kind of sitting at a bar, just like it's not allowed by law. So there will be some controls in place for the staffing as well. I know at various locations in various of the parks that you talked about, you can walk up to a cart and purchase a beer or a wine or a snack to go with it. The Jack-O-Lantern Spectacular at Roger Williams Park, you can walk around and there's little beer carts and concession things. And so it's not going to be throughout the park. There's not going to be a lot of them. There'll probably be maybe 1-2 places tops at this time that we can think of offhand. And it's more of a convenience for our customers and also an ability for us to capture extra revenue from guests that are already coming to the park.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions, Ms. Wertz?
No, I'm good.
Thank you, Mr. Bessie.
Thank you.
So when I take a step back and, from a consumer standpoint, I think it's a great idea. I have concerns, but I think they're not concerns that couldn't easily be addressed. I think the biggest thing for me would be how you're going to control it. When we talk about all these different venues that have things, whether it be a concert venue, whether it be an amusement park, like they have controls in place. They have specific people that all of their focus is alcohol control. So I guess my question is that something that is in your business plan? Are you going to have additional staff that's hired just to physically focus on handoff exchanges? Somebody that might not have an ID, somebody that is, underage. Are you going to have people that are specifically designed just to know what's going on and what to look for, so that we can control the underage, the overconsumption? Because, let's face it, if somebody is too inebriated to be able to go to a bar to buy a drink, doesn't necessarily mean that there might not be a friend that's willing to purchase that for them so they can continue consuming. So I guess my question is do you have a plan in place for staff that's just going to specifically be looking for things like this, that isn't focusing on anything else that has to do with the other operations of the park?
Thank you. Mr. Darling, do you choose to answer?
Yes. So everybody will be tip certified or some certification thereof, which does train them on how to look for over serving, checking IDs, things like that. Especially anybody that's going to be serving alcohol, they have to be of a certain age, and they have to have the certification. As well as that is, I'm a firm believer in a good majority of your staff having that same training and education, which I do at my hotel properties currently. So we don't just train the staff that's doing the actual serving, but we also train some support staff. And with that, in our case, would be any security team members, all of our managers, maybe our shift leaders as well. And that way people walking around the park, maybe not the ones doing the direct serving of it, but are also aware of what to look for, what things to pay attention to, and to make sure that the consumption is done appropriately.
Thank you. Mr. Bessie, does that answer your question?
Yes, and just one follow-up question. So this isn't, so it sounds to me that this isn't your first venture into alcohol. Your other businesses that you control also serve and sell alcoholic beverages.
Yes, that's correct. I have 4 hotels with full liquor licenses. I also have 3 that I'm direct owner of, one that a partner in the liquor license because there's a restaurant on premises, a restaurant and bar on premises, and there's another entity that operates it. And as well as I'm a partner in a restaurant in Providence that recently opened that has a full liquor license as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Sullivan, I saw that you had a question.
Yeah, thank you very much. I hope you guys had your first season was a good one, a nice warm one, which I'm hoping was driving people, and it was a good one. So now that you've had sort of that first season down, and I hear this a lot from our EMS and fires, that the lots of people that like to pass out on due to the heat down the stairs during the wait for some of the rides, if you will. And that's one of the issues. So that would be we obviously want to work together so that you're very successful, but that's one of the concerns that I hear all the time already from our EMS and the onset fire staff. So just a little concern. I agree. You don't really have to overserve on a 90-degree day in the heat to have something like that happen. And it's been a tremendous tax on our staff for the EMS and again, the onset fire district. So I just have to admit that's one of my concerns about it. So since it's already a pre-existing issue.
Thank you. Mr. Slavin, I didn't see your hand up. Do you have any questions, sir?
Several. First of all, I'd like to thank the gentleman. We had an event in September, and I think you guys closed September 15th, and you allowed the Onset Bay Association with their Harvest Festival to be able to use the parking area there, which I thank you very much for. It shows you want to be a good citizen for us. With that said, most liquor establishments that we have that are outside are contained in that there's one entrance in, the same entrance out. So people can't walk around or et cetera. This is obviously new for us as to how it's going to work. So I have some concerns how it's going to be actually controlled going forward. The idea of people walking around drinking, it concerns me somewhat. I know if you go to New Orleans and other places, you can have whatever a hurricane drink in your hand, which will knock any person out after the finishing one alone. And they're all over the place like that. But in this particular case here, I have concerns because you're going to have kids and adults all mixed together while they're drinking, et cetera. And you're going to have an issue with people pulling in and out of the facility. We know it's a tough intersection, even with the road being redone. And I'm a little concerned about people leaving the park, sitting out in the sun all day drinking and then leaving and driving safely. But that's something we'll have to deal with. The other issue that we're going to have is we only have the one license, which we're discussing now. And we'll have to discuss how we handle that. I was hoping for a different solution, but we'll explain a little bit what our problem is right now. Thank you very much.
Okay, I have some questions. And I know that our office, the Board of Selectmen office, through Ms. Slaney, asked you several times where you were going to be having these kiosks. And I don't see that you have, and I don't hear that you have outlined where those locations within the park would be. Can you answer that? You said you're going to have little tiki bars and stuff. Where are they going to be?
So currently, right now, there's a tiki hut that's a tattoo hut. Our thought process right now would be to replace that with a specific bar type of facility. At this point in time, with permitting and design and the unknown of the license, I think it would be essentially just a cart for next season that would do some bottled beverages or something along those lines. It would be, we're looking at a container bar, which would have some seating on the outside and allow us to do frozen drinks and different beverages. We're not going to be a full-blown restaurant bar. You're not going to have a full stock of liquors that you can go in and just sit there and order all day. It's not what we're looking to try to do. We're trying to supplement in with some vacation-y type of fancy type of souvenir type of drinks. And honestly, consumers were asking for it this year. When we're thinking of the tiki hut that we have was for tattoos, we're coming up and asking, is that a bar? When does it open? So it's really facilitating that consumer demand as well. And so that would be right now today, that would be the location that it would be at.
Okay, I also looked at several water parks in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, and none of them have what I would call walkabouts. And that's what you're asking us for. All of the ones that I looked at, including Wolf Lodge and whatever the hurricane one is, as well as the one in Hyannis, they have specific areas that are they're segregated by fence or walls, so that the drinking is done within that specific location. That's not what you're asking us for. And I have a problem with that, to be honest with you. And I'm not interested in what they do in Florida, Louisiana, or Alaska. I'm interested in what we as a local licensing authority need to be aware of. And in all of the licenses, particularly when the outdoor licenses were, when during COVID, people were allowed to serve. There were very strict things set up to make sure that people weren't wandering the streets. One of the locations in Onset, when they asked to do outdoor serving, we made them put up plastic walls. So we've been very, very conservative about making sure that the drinking is restricted to a specific area. Can you address that, please?
I think that's a valid concern and argument. I do think it's a unique situation where it's sitting on 5 acres of a restricted area. There is one entrance, there is one exit. I do think it's in a different situation as far as what we're concerned versus a restaurant or outside dining of that nature. You know, we're willing to figure out a solution and work with the town on what we all think kind of works best. You know, if there needs to be a delineation of a specific area, then we can always look at a plan and try to figure out a path going forward. When, you know, at my hotel properties, I have a property that's about 11 acres, and we ended up fencing in a courtyard to create that delineation of where can the alcohol be served and where can it not go out of. So I have a courtyard of about 2 or 3 acres inside an actual hotel building, and you can consume on the entire property throughout the hotel as well as the courtyard. You just are fenced in and you can't get in or out of the courtyard. You have to have an entrance and an exit. So, and I know this is a different situation as everything is. So, you know, that was kind of our understanding as we went forward with the ABCC submittal as well as the town.
I would point out that Waterwiz is known as a family entertainment, and your hotels or your other businesses, I don't know what they are, but this is really a family entertainment location. And again, I have some real concerns about the segregation of the liquor serving in a population that is, for the most part, certainly underage, because most of the people there are kids. Anyway, are there any further questions or comments from my board? Mr. Bessie?
I just have one more. I just want to go back to Great Wolf Lodge. I have 5 children. I've been there many times. And as far as the alcohol serving and consumption, there are multiple locations where you can purchase, where you can consume. And one of those is actually on the little kiddo side of the establishment, where you have open pools for the kids to go and swim and things like that. So it's not unheard of to have, and I'm definitely not against it, but my concern, and it will continue to be my concern, is how it's served, how we protect, how we, whether it's a certain delineation or not. I think that, you know, there is a pathway for this to be successful. We just have to make sure, as you know, as a board, that we're making decisions that are right for the town, right for the businesses, to protect us and also to protect you. So I think there's a pathway. I think it just needs to be discussed as to what it might be, to make it successful, but it is doable, as long as it can be done, you know, safely and correctly.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on behalf or against the application? Please raise your hand so I can let you into the meeting. And I see none. If you, ladies and gentlemen, have no further questions, I will ask for a motion to close the hearing.
Make a motion to close the hearing on Waterwiz.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to close the hearing on WW Cranberry Highway, Inc. Any further discussion on the motion to close the hearing? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
and myself, yes. The hearing is now closed. I will now entertain discussion about the fact that there is one license available. I will also point out that the applicants from Scarlet Rose started the discussion with the town about this full year annual common vic all alcohol license in May of this year. Yes, Mr. Bowen, please. You're muted, sir. Thank you.
Oh, sounded better that way. Situations where there is only one license and you have multiple applicants for the license. It's not common, but it happens. And the way to handle a situation like that is the way that you're handling it. You hold what's known as a comparative set of hearings. You allow the various applicants for the one license to make their cases. You get to hear both cases before you decide which party the license should go to. And so as you make your decisions, the sorts of factors that you consider are things such as public need for the license, suitability of the premises, in terms of point of sale, area of consumption, controls, effect on the neighborhood, if any. Those are the sorts of things that you look at in deciding whether this license should be granted. You don't have to grant it to either party. You certainly may only grant it to one party. So as you make your comments and ask your questions, I think those are the points to focus in on. As a parenthetical, and I know some of the board members could probably comment on this better than I could. It's my understanding that we are in the process of seeking additional liquor licenses, and that is currently up at the legislature. I don't know if mired is the right word, but mired in a second reading.
Mhm.
But I believe that there is hope that there will be more licenses coming along. Thank you.
Yes, let me clarify that. There are 5 licenses in front of the legislature right now, but they are designated for Wareham Village 1, which starts at the end of Main, or the beginning of Main Street, and goes through Tremont Nail Factory property. So those licenses are location specific, and actually 2 of them are actually address specific. So they are not available to anybody other than on that strip, if you will, just for clarification. Mr. Slavin, you have your hand up.
Thank you. The way this is right now, ideally, we would have liked to have had our warrant article passed by the House and the Senate with the 5 additional, what we call Wareham Village 1, which is Main Street and Lower Main Street. It would have taken care of Scarlet Rose because they could have qualified simply for one of the 3 available licenses on this particular program. And the one that's available could basically, Waterways could, qualify for easily. The situation, unfortunately, right now is that we don't have a time frame available for Scarlet Rose to wait. And I'll explain a little bit. I was on the phone today trying to track down where we were and what's going on as usual. The warrant article is been in the House and Senate for a while. It goes to the Senate first. These things get put into the Senate when it gets approved, hopefully by the Senate. They go to the House for readings there and they get approved. Then they go to the governor for signature if he so chooses. We are only in the second reading in the Senate, which is really off the record ridiculous. It should have been well past that. We have a home rule charter, and when the town meeting votes for something like this, it should just be virtually a rubber stamp going through, and it's not. My real concern right now is that because it's still sitting with the Senate, there's a chance that this may not get out of the Senate before the end of this year. And at that point there, the Senate, the particular legislators and the legal teams involved with this could consider the bill stale. And when that happens, therefore, it's no longer exists. And we would have to go through the whole process of going through town meeting and asking for those 5 licenses again. So that's a problem for us, because ideally what I would have done was to have asked that Scarlet Rose have one of those 3 licenses, and we would have it in a reasonable time so it wouldn't affect them when their seasonal license ran out. At this point here, I don't believe it's possible at all. So from a point of view, from looking at this, and I've always been pro-business in the town, I don't think we have much choice but to give the license to Scarlet Rose simply because of the time frame and because we can't do what I'd like to do, which would have been the simplest way. We do have one other license that's on hold for a company who's selling their location in the onset area. That license would come back to us if they sell the property. It's not going to be a liquor store. That should be resolved shortly, and that may be a situation for Waterways. What also can happen is that I think we should be negotiating a lot stronger with Waterways to come up with actual final idea of how this can work for them and work for the town. So if and when, which hopefully is shortly, a license becomes available, we can process it and get through with it. I really, in the long term, think this could work. The issues that we have of containment, kids and adults mixing with alcohol, etc. I have a house out of Desert, Nevada, so I'm into Las Vegas an awful lot for food and everything else. And there is ways to control this and to make it work. It's just a matter of sitting down and looking at the property and laying out how it should work and have some control. So unfortunately, my recommendation is going to be, because I can't make everybody happy tonight, is to go ahead with Scarlet Rose. They've been working 1 year to get this restaurant open and done. They basically applied early. The license was available when they applied. And I don't think we have much choice in the matter. It's up to the other members, but I will work as hard as I can to get the second license for Waterways available so we can negotiate a program that will work for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bessie, you had your hand up, but you took it down. Do you choose?
No, I took it down because I was figured you had seen it. I mean, I have, I guess I could go either way on this. I look at it from two different perspectives. I look at it from expansion of business in town with giving the license to Waterways. I look at expansion of the current business for Scarlet Rose to be able to add to their offerings. We're kind of in a rock and a hard place with the fact that, we have these 5 licenses that are dangling for, Wareham Village 1, which has Mr. Slavin has mentioned we wouldn't be dealing with having to have this discussion on where, when, how, and why. So it's unfortunate. I mean, I could go either way. I really love the idea of Waterways being able to expand, from a revenue standpoint, and bringing some more money in, because when more money comes in, more tax revenue is attained, things like that. If I'm looking at it strictly from a revenue standpoint and money that could be made from a tax standpoint, the obvious answer would be Waterways, because of the sheer volume of people that come through. From a year-round standpoint, business for Scarlet Rose, I can see revenue for so I guess I really don't know, I know what makes sense, but it's tough. I mean, unfortunately, this is what makes our job a little more difficult, is trying to figure out who, I don't want to say who's more deserving, because they're both businesses that do a lot for, Waterways has done a number of things for this town for years, has been around for longer than me, and Scarlet Rose being new and being another local business. So I really don't, I don't want to say I feel bad for whatever direction it goes. I think there's resolutions, but it's just one of those rock and a hard place situations. And as Alan said, it's we'll see how the board weighs and go from there. But I really hope that in the long term we figure it out for both sides.
Mr. Sullivan, you had your hand up. You're muted.
Madam Chairperson, just a thought while we're waiting on some of this out. What's the possibility of a seasonal license for Waterways?
Are you asking whether there's one available?
Yeah, I believe there.
Yes, there are seasonal licenses available. And that was actually a question that I was going to ask. You're open 3 months a year. Why would you want an annual license, Mr. Darling or Mr. Levinson?
I can answer that. One of the things we're looking at doing is possibly expanding, not necessarily obviously the water park business because of the weather, but using the park for possibly a Halloween type of attraction or a Christmas type of attraction of some sort in the future. So that would kind of be where the year round would come in, depending on the seasonal license and its parameters. As far as working with the town to come up with an exact plan, we're very open to where we need to go with it. If we, as far as the bar location, like I said, it'd be at the Tiki Hut. If the town's comfortable, is comfortable with us, or more comfortable with us delineating out that area, then that's a direction obviously we would be willing to go in.
Thank you. Mr. Bowen, I'll let you go first and then I'm going to speak. You're on mute.
Of course. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just in terms of the time for a seasonal license, correct me if I'm wrong, but probably the only holidays that you would probably miss out on with a seasonal license would be Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, which, I understand could be a big one. And April Fool's Day?
That's correct. That's correct. My comment would be, Mr. Levinson, I'm not going to allow you to speak. I'm sorry. Unless you have, well, no, I'm not going to let you.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I guess my question is I like the idea of exploring the seasonal license, but if that doesn't come to fruition, this actually might be a question for your counsel, I believe, Mr. Bowen. I assume you're the board counsel. I do a lot of liquor license work. I've never run into a situation before that we might have here where there's these 5 other licenses that seem to be earmarked for a certain district or portion of your town. And one business could qualify it, but has, I guess, a general license. If those licenses are approved, can the general license then be shifted to Scarlet, Scarlet Rose, and then make the general license back available to the public?
I can answer that question for you, and the answer is no. It would require hearings, etc. Mr. Bowen is disagreeing with me, but it would require hearings. It would require the entire process to be retaken. Mr. Bowen?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Not that I ever want to disagree with you, because I know what happens. I know what happens when I do. But theoretically, there is a way to do it. It's not necessarily easy, but it can be done. Just to back up a little bit, in 20 or 30 years ago, when you wanted more licenses for your quota, you just send the request for the legislation up, you'd get it. About 20 years ago, a rep from Quincy decided that, who was on the committee for licensure, I guess, decided that every request going forward had to have an address attached to it. And that's the way it's been ever since. So I agree with counsel that it's not necessarily an ancient practice, but it's the one we're stuck with right now. So that's a requirement of the legislature. So what happens if these 5 licenses get approved, one of which could have gone to the first applicant had it been ready for tonight? Could that license be relocated to WaterWiz, assuming that that was the wish of the board? The answer is no, because there was a site-specific or area-specific tag to the license. So I said there was a way to do it that wouldn't be easy, and here's what it is. What you would have to do is you would have to negotiate, if the first applicant got the license, you would have to negotiate with the restaurant to surrender their license upon receipt of one of the tagged licenses, and then you would have to apply for the surrendered license. It sounds cumbersome. It is cumbersome. Can it be done? Yes, I've done it. So it's a possibility.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen.
All right.
I'm going to remind people that the original applicant from Scarlet Rose was in May of this year, that we do not in fact have a location specific area lined out on the WaterWiz property or the WW Cranberry Highway property, despite the fact that the office of the Board of Selectmen asked 3 times to have that instead of having the 5 acres being the area to be served. They asked for a specific location. That was not forthcoming. You're telling us now that that would be forthcoming, but it is not, in fact, part of what your application is tonight. So I just would remind my board that those are some of the facts that I would ask that you think about. Now, I could accept a motion to postpone a decision on either of these applications until the next meeting, which is in 2 weeks. I could accept a motion to grant to either A or to B. And if A were given the license, then B would have to be denied. If A were denied, then B would possibly be given the license. Those are your choices. Mr. Bessie?
I just have a question. I guess it's more of just an understanding. So the license that is currently held by Scarlet Rose is set to expire on
January 15th.
Okay. So I guess my question is.
But Mr. Bessie, that is a wine and malt beverage. They are going for an all alcohol.
No, I understand that. I understand
Okay.
that. So I guess I'm going to make a motion here. I'm going to make a motion that we continue the decision on these applications to a further meeting to maybe give a little more time for the legislature to potentially shake out, not to saying it will, not to saying it won't or it will, because I don't think we're up against time to grant it to either Scarlet Rose or to Waterwiz, where Scarlet Rose's business wouldn't be affected because this license wouldn't go into effect until the new year anyway. So I think giving the state a little more time to potentially shake out might be beneficial for both parties. And I don't think that it would really affect us from a board standpoint just to bring it back for a vote. So that would be my
Is that your motion?
Yes.
Okay, and would you pick a date specific, please? The next meeting will be December 6th and then December 20th.
I would say to continue it to the 20th of December.
It's not a continuance.
I mean, I would say to give us till the 20th of December, bring it back on the 20th to make a vote on which way the license is going to go.
Is there a second to his motion? Is there a second to his motion? Hearing none, the motion dies. May I have a motion?
Mr.
Chadwick?
Chairman, I have a quick question here, just to verify. We do have seasonal licenses, correct?
Correct.
All right, right now I'd like to make a motion that we award the license to Bistro, and Waterwiz applies for a seasonal license, and at which point, if they decide down the road to expand for whatever other days throughout the year, other licenses might be available at that time.
Okay, that motion is actually out of order. The only thing you can make a motion to is either to grant or deny. You can't tie Waterwiz into that motion.
Okay,
So,
all right.
try it again.
My motion right now would be to grant Bistro,
Scarlet Rose LLC.
Scarlet Rose, sorry, would be to grant Scarlet Rose the license.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second,
Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Mr. Slavin?
I'm going to basically go along with the motion simply because tracking all this for the last 5 months, knowing how things work in the House and Senate and where our 5 licenses are right now, I have real concerns that our 5 licenses probably will basically become a stale issue, because as I say, I even spoke as early as this afternoon on this, and it's very discouraging, as I said before, but I think if we try and delay this at all, it's not going to make any difference, because we're not going to get an answer till sometime in 2023.
Mr. Bowen, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. assuming that the motion that's on the floor was approved, then if the legislature came through with the 5 licenses before the first of the year, it might still be possible to do some rearranging of license holders and the party that holds any particular license. So in the spirit of Ron's motion, I think that there is a window here for you. It's just really up to the legislature.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Slavin.
I think also during this time frame, however we decide this, we need to be working with Waterways to come up with a program that when it comes time to vote, that we're all in favor of, so we don't waste a lot of time back and forth.
Thank you. I have a motion on the floor and I will not allow any discussion from anybody other than my board members. Is there any further discussion from my board members? The motion is to grant the all alcohol annual common vic all alcohol beverage license to Scarlet Rose LLC DBA Scarlet Rose. It's been motioned and seconded. I'm going for a roll call vote. Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
No.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
and myself, yes. So, question for you, Mr. Bowen, do we need to deny the application from WW?
Yes.
I may have a motion to deny that application, please.
And Madam Chairman, it would be useful as part of that motion for there to be a statement of reasons.
Yes, sir. May I have a motion, Mr. Slavin?
Make a motion that we deny the application at this time for WW on the basis of not having a license available.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion to the motion as provided? Ms. Wertz?
Yes, I have a question.
1 second, Mr. Chadwick. Ms. Wertz?
Yep.
I would just add to the reason for a denial is that we need to see an actual more substantial plan on where the alcohol is going to be served, how it's going to be contained, what the actual layout of it is. So,
Mr. Slavin, do you choose to amend your motion or not?
I don't believe it's necessary.
Thank you. Then that won't be part of the motion.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Chadwick had a question first.
Yeah, well, it's more of a statement that if we have seasonal licenses available at some point, you can head down that road, and I'm pretty sure those seasonal licenses run till Christmas.
They run through January 1st if you get an extension. I mean, January 15th if you get an extension. All right, I have a motion to deny with a second. Yes, Mr. Beck.
I just want to point, ask this question in open forum so that there's no, so was it, I don't know if it was Alan, was it you that mentioned that we should work or try to work with Waterways to come up with a plan that might be suitable? So I guess the question is that would it be allowable for either myself or another member of the board to work with Waterways to figure out what we would like to see from a town standpoint as far as whether there be restrictions, no restrictions, or what have you? Is that something that we can do, or is that something that's not allowed?
No, they are the applicants. They need to, Mr. Bowen, I'll let you answer the question.
Oh, actually, I can answer it, although I have my hand up for another matter. I don't recommend that board members come involved in helping them develop a plan, only because then you sort of take yourself out of the role of judge, and you probably might even have to recuse yourself from the vote. So that'd be the only reason. That I imagine that the applicant probably has a good sense of the issues regarding need to identify point of sale, need to identify area of consumption, need to restrict the area of consumption. I think the board has come through pretty clearly on that. The reason why I had raised my hand is I was going to recommend that Ms. Wertz amendment to the motion be adopted by the board. I think
they don't
Mr. Chadwick,
Oh, we get it all. Oh,
Mr. Chadwick, please mute yourself. Thank you. Mr. Bowen, I'm sorry.
I wanted to say that I thought Ms. Wert's amendment to the motion was valuable, and I'd recommend that the board accept that modification.
We'll go ahead and accept the modification due to the council's recommendation.
Who seconded the, Mr. Chadwick, were you the second to the motion? The original motion?
I believe so.
Okay, do you accept that amendment to your motion?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion now is before you. And no further discussion I see, and therefore I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
No.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes,
myself, yes, 4-0-4-1-0. So gentlemen and ladies, that is where we are at the moment. I think you have heard us well, and we look forward to seeing you return with some additional information. Thank you very much. We
Thank you.
now are going to have a hearing, a 7:25 hearing, and before we call for that hearing, I would ask that Mr. Nassif and Miss Morton be let into the meeting, please. Jillian Morton, as well as Mr. Nassif, if he's here. Is Mr. Nassif with you, Mrs. Morton? No. Good evening, Ms. Morton. Do you expect Mr. Nassif, or is it just you?
Madam Chair, I believe he was on earlier and came on by accident. I don't know if he's still, oh, there he is.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yep.
Great.
All right, may I have a motion to open the hearing on AJC Store Inc., DBA?
make a motion that we open the hearing for AGC Store DBA New England Convenience for an annual packaged goods wine and malt license.
We have a second to the motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on opening the hearing? Seeing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
Mr. Slavin, you're muted,
Yes.
and myself, yes. The hearing is now open. I'm going to ask Ms. Morton or Mr. Nassif to address this board.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll start. Just refreshing everyone's memory on our application here in front of you. So we met before presenting a wine and malt only license at the New England convenience store that's located at 3088 Cranberry Highway. This is the property that's a kind of cross from, you have Sullivan Tire is on that main highway. Last time we met, there were a few items that we needed to get to the selectman's office for you guys to be able to review. So I trust you have those within your materials. Ms. Laney provided them. So we have an additional binder which shows the commercial general liability as well as the liquor liability. We have already submitted the workers' comp as well. And then the other concern that Mr. Slavin had was regarding the lease. So one of the concerns was whether or not the landlord had rights then to this licensure if you award it. So we did provide that as well as a little bit of a dialogue regarding the fact that Mr. Nassif had purchased that from a previous owner, and there were some name changes. There was a name change from the smoke shop now to the convenience store. So I provided that information regarding the corporate name change. But we're really here to answer any other questions that the board may have at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Nassif, do you choose to address the board at this time, or would you like to wait? You're muted, sir.
Yes. Hey, good evening. Yes.
You would like to address the board, or?
I'm trying. No, I have my lawyer. She will present me. Wonderful.
Okay, thank you. Do any members of my board have a question? Please raise your hand. Okay, I have some questions. The lease that is purported to be assigned was written in 2016 and with a 3-year expiry for 2019. And it is signed by Barrasso and somebody who's a trustee, whose name I can't read. Then we have a lease assignment, which is not dated, and it is signed by Mr. Nassif. And then there's a separate piece of paper that again is not, it's not dated, and it's signed by, I can't read, but it says landlord. So we have 2 lease assignments that are not, that don't have the both of the signatures, both of the assigner and the assignee and the landlord. So I have a problem that documentation is not, in fact, in my opinion, it doesn't close the gap. So that's a question for you, Ms. Morton.
Okay, absolutely. So in regards to those documents, I do see that the first one is dated at the very end, the 2016 that you're referring to, the lease.
Yes, that's 22 August 2016.
Yep, correct. And then we're going to the actual lease assignment. That's signed by signed by the landlord. The trustee is LJ Palazzini of the trust. The effective date, I agree, it could be documented correctly. I agree with that. That does have the effective date under there, December 1st, 2017. And that last document, that addendum A, is actually dated in the last where it says in witness whereof the parties have executed the commercial lease. Addendum A, 5th day of March 2019. So that should cover as far as the rent schedule. Do you see that on the addendum
I see
A?
that, but I disagree with you because the trustee has signed and then Mr. Nassif has signed, but Mr. Barrasso has not signed.
Okay, so you're going back to the original.
Yeah, I am, because that's the
Barrasso.
original, the original lease.
Sure. I'd like to respond to that. So
yeah,
I'm assuming that had been regarding a change in trusteeship of the trustee of the landlord. If that's something that the board is looking for us to get documentation regarding, we can, but those trustees of the commercial trusts will change from time to time.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else have any questions? Is there anyone in the audience who chooses to speak on behalf of the applicant? Please raise your hand. And if there's anybody who would like to speak against the applicant, please raise your hand. And I see none. Mr. Nassif, do you have a question? You have your hand raised.
Yeah, I do about the April lease for the third person. You're asking about the third person.
Mhm.
That third person, that what happened when I took the store, there was the guy who had that store, and there was like to continue with the lease. That's why he's no longer with the second lease. That's why.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on Ms. Wertz? You have a question?
Yes, I am just looking at the 2 copies of Hospitality Mutual Insurance Company. And they look to be a quote, but I'm not, there's nothing that says they've actually gotten payment. It just says this is what the cost is going to be. And so I don't know if these are quotes or if
they're declarations.
Bought.
They're declarations.
So we're okay then. Okay, that's it.
Any other questions? Then I will accept a motion to close the hearing.
I make a motion, we close the hearing for AJC Store Inc., DBA New England Communications. Convenience, excuse me, New England
May I
Convenience.
have a second to the motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to close the hearing. Is there any further discussion about closing the hearing? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Chadwick to close the hearing.
Yes.
Mr. Bessie to close the hearing.
Yes.
Ms. Wertz to close the hearing.
Yes,
Mr. Slavin to close the hearing.
Yes.
Myself to close the hearing, yes. The hearing is now closed. I will now accept a motion.
make a motion that we grant a annual license for packaged goods, wine and malt to New England Convenience or AGC Store Inc., DBA New England Convenience.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
and myself, no. The reason I am voting no is because I am not satisfied with the paperwork. Other than that, I'm glad that this gentleman has chosen to do business and improve and enlarge his business, but I am not comfortable with the paperwork. The motion carries, the license will be issued. Thank you very much, Ms. Morton and Mr. Nassif. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Ms.
Thank you.
McGraw, we will have Ms. McGraw, Ms. Jones, and Mr. LeBoulier enter the meeting if they are here, please. Okay, next on the agenda is the application from Wareham Village Association Care of Tracy McGraw for the use of town roads for the annual Christmas parade. Ms. McGraw, do you choose to address us? You're muted and we can't see you.
I am unmuting and I am there we go.
Atta girl. Thank you.
Hi. How are you all? I've been so excited watching your whole meeting. I had such energy an hour and a half ago, but I'm going to bring it back right now. The positive gig going on and I'm so excited. So we had a Chiefs meeting tonight. We have had 4 Chiefs meetings for this parade so far because that's how big it's getting. So super excited about this. I also was interviewed. I was approached and interviewed by Fund 7 today. They did, and I think they're going to be in our parade. So it's you know, we're gonna go beyond quote epic that the newspapers called us last year. Yay!
Okay, awesome. You did give us a route and all the paperwork is in order. Unless any one of you has a question of Ms. McGraw, I would accept a motion to grant. Or
I make a,
go ahead.
I make a motion, we grant the Onset Bay Association. No, I'm down
Wareham
every
Village
day.
Association.
Wareham Village, Tracy McGraw. Tracy, I'm not getting rid of you, I promise. To allow them to have the annual Christmas parade on December 3rd.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion to grant the application for use of town roads? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes, and the Romeos intend to participate in large quantity this year.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
and myself, yes, it will be granted.
May
The paperwork won't be ready until Monday at the earliest.
Madam Chair, may I just have 2 seconds to speak on this?
Sure, 2 seconds.
Okay, 2 seconds. So we're looking for a town crier because Mr. Slavin no longer would like to do that role. But I'm hoping that maybe Jared or Ron would like to take that part just because they're the new. I also need to know if Jared is going to be with this, if he's not going to be the town crier, are you going to walk with the select or are you going to be with the Tigers float? There's also
Okay, those are details that you need to work out some other time, Ms. McGraw. I'm sorry. It's great. And if Mr. Chadwick wants to be the town crier, Mr. Bessie, I'm sure they'll get hold of you. Okay?
All righty.
Thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Jones, we have an application from Onset Bay Association, and would you like to speak to your application for the town property for Christmas in the Village on December 10th?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Not much to add. It's going to be about the same as it usually is. We are hopefully getting a trolley. We'll have carolers, an ice sculptor, and various family-friendly activities throughout the village from noon to 3 on December 10th. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you.
We hope for a good day. Yeah.
I have one question for you. I know that in the past you've given out cookies and, you know, stuff like that, but the Board of Health didn't sign off because it says no food being served. Can you help me with that?
Oh, well, I guess we didn't look at it as food being served, just cookies being decorated. I guess,
I guess what I'd ask is,
it's never been questioned. It's never been questioned before, but at any rate.
Okay, so I just would ask you to double check with the Board of Health on that one.
Yeah, that's it. That's an interesting question.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions of Ms. Jones? Then I will accept a motion.
I make a motion that we give permission to the Onset Bay Association, care of Cat Jones, to run the Christmas in the Village event on December 10th from 12 to 3 and on December 11th for rain date.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Goodness, you guys are slowing down. Motion made and seconded to approve. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin.
Yes.
Bessie.
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick.
Yes.
Ms. Wertz.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Would you just double check that with the Board of Health, Ms. Jones? Thank you so much.
Hey,
I
Kat,
certainly will. Thank you.
before you go, Kat, have you selling any of the trees on the pier? How's it
They're
been
all
going?
gone.
I sold them out in 3 days.
Awesome.
They're going.
Very cool.
No, thank you. It's a great idea. It's going to go well. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. We have 2 applications from the Wareham Garden Club. Mr. LeBoulier is not with us, but the paperwork is all in order. There are 2 different dates, so I would ask for 2 separate motions, please. Which one are you moving? F? The December 3rd fair? To the Wareham Garden Club, December 3rd Christmas fair. That's your motion?
Yes, the application for Wareham Garden Club.
Yes. Paperwork is all in order.
Okay.
A motion made and seconded to grant the December 3rd date to the Wareham Garden Club. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin.
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick.
Yes.
Mr. Bessie.
Yes.
Ms. Wertz.
Yes.
Myself, yes, 500. Now I'd like a motion to Wareham Garden Club for their plant sale on May 20th, 2023. Paperwork.
I make a motion to approve for the date of May 20th, 2023.
Is the second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin.
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick.
Yes.
Mr. Bessie.
Yes.
Ms. Wertz.
Yes.
Myself, yes, 500. We now have what looks like a very long set of renewals for year-round common vic licenses, and I will accept a motion.
Excuse me, before we go ahead and do that, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think it would be easier for us because of the volume that we basically go by each section of type of license and just as in the agenda that's posted, and also that we basically understand that there are many licenses with the different issues with not signatures, you know, from, like, say, fire department or board of health, et cetera, or payment of the fee. And we go ahead and approve if that's the case, and hold the license at the selectman's office till all the issues are taken care of. And then the selectmen go ahead and sign and issue the license, and they can be picked up. If
That's great.
okay with everybody.
So is that your motion to move
Yeah.
the year-round common vics, which is under item, I guess it's 8H, is it 8?
H, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, 8, and following with each one after that.
Okay, so I have a motion for the year-round common vic licenses to approve, subject to getting all of the documentation correct. The licenses will not be even available for selectmen signatures until all of the paperwork or inspections have been done. Is there a second to that motion?
Second,
Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will go.
Yeah,
for-
I have a question on the number 28.
What is your question?
Are we going to approve this one as well? I think it's excuse me, it's number 26.
Number 26. Okay, yes, your question, yeah. I would, the reason that Ms. Wertz is asking this question is a very good reason. Starbucks coffee is not yet in compliance with a special permit from the planning board concerning certain parts of their premises. So I'm guessing that we make note of that, and that also would be part of what Mr. Slavin's motion covers. In other words, when that issue has been resolved and any other issue that would be on it, that it would be released.
Okay.
Is that okay with you, Ms. Wertz? Mr. Bowen, I see your hand. Yes.
Indeed.
Yep.
I move to approve those category of licenses with the exception of number 26, that it be continued to a further meeting so that we may have the opportunity to inquire of the applicant as to whether it is in compliance with its planning board conditions.
That was your motion, Ms. Wertz, is that correct?
So moved.
And that was your
Second.
second, Mr. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. So, but the motion still stands with all of the other contingencies that Mr. Slavin had.
Right.
Any further discussion on that motion, which was brilliant? All those, hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
yes.
Mr. Slavin,
Sure.
and myself, yes. So that is 500. I'll now accept a motion on the item I, which is the renewal of the Class 1 licenses for car dealers. May I have a motion?
Same
I
as
move-
8.
Same as say, okay. Is there, and a second, Ms. Wertz?
I need to, Alan, I couldn't even understand what you said. Could you please repeat that?
Same as motion for H.
Okay, which includes all that they meet all
Yes,
criteria.
yes, yep.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Is your hand still up, Mr. Bowen? Thank you. I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick.
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
myself, yes. So moved. And now I will accept a motion on the Class 2 licenses, which are also auto dealers.
Go for it, Alan.
Motion again, the same as we did on H and I for J.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded, and we understand that some of the paperwork is missing and they will not be available until all of the paperwork and inspections is done. Yes, Mr. Bessie.
I wanna call to number 9, Marion Auto Sales. Have they complied with our
Yes.
fencing?
Yes,
they-
Complete?
yes, they
Okay.
did.
Okay,
I've been there.
I must have missed that when I drove by.
They notified us 2 weeks ago, and then Mr. Slavin went out and examined it.
Ron,
Okay.
you have to look at the left rear and the right rear behind the building. There's a new fence up on both sides, cars behind it.
Okay, I'll have to drive by and just
Yeah.
visually see it, because I didn't see it when I drove by, so I just wanted to make sure, but okay, so yes, that's the only question I had.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
myself, yes. And now one last motion on the renewal of the Class 3 licenses.
Motion to be the same as they were for H, I, and J, 4K.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick.
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
myself, yes. Done. Okay, under town business, we have 4 different fees that I would like you guys, gals, to look at. They just seem weird to me. And so the one of them is the shellfish renewal or modification. We have no fee. And it takes us a couple of hours to do the paperwork, so I'm suggesting a fee of $75. On the seasonal packaged goods store, wines and malt, if you look on the wines and malt seasonal is $300 more than the packaged store all alcoholic. And that seems to be backwards to me. In other words, all alcoholic, you can sell more than the wines and malt. But the fee for the all alcoholic is $12.60, and for wines and malt, it's $15.75. That seems to me to be backwards.
I'd reverse that.
Yeah, that
Okay.
doesn't make,
Yeah.
that doesn't make any sense.
Okay, and then one other would be the annual package stores, wines and malt. Where'd that one go?
it's up the top.
Yeah.
So we'd want to move that to 1260.
No, that should be
No.
more than,
That should
that should be more than the
that,
50,
right?
that should be more than the 1575.
Okay, so let's do it one at a time. May I have a motion on the shellfish renewal modification for $75?
I make a motion to make the fee for a shellfish renewal and modification to be $75.
There's a second to that motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
and myself, yes, done. Next, I would ask for a motion on the seasonal packaged goods store wines and malt, and I would ask that one be
$12.60.
$12.60.
I make a motion that the seasonal packaged goods stores, wines and malts permit fee be $1,260.
Is there a second to that motion?
second,
Second.
Okay, excellent. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick, Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
yes,
and myself, yes, 500. And then I would ask for a motion on the seasonal packaged goods store, all alcoholic.
I make a motion on the seasonal packaged goods stores, all alcoholic beverages to be modified to $1,575.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
yes,
and myself, yes. And then the last one would be the annual packaged goods store wines and malt license.
And what did you have? What did you have for a fee on that one?
It is currently 15, no,
yeah, it's currently 1575.
yeah, it's currently 1575.
I mean, that's, what would you want to change that to? I mean, they're only selling the wines and malt, so it's not all alcohol. So I guess making that the same as the seasonal all alcohol would probably make sense to keep it that way.
I don't know. I think the 1575 works. You've got the wine and malt now at 1260 for seasonal, and then for annual of 1575.
Well, what's the,
sense.
so is the seasonal the April 1st to December 31st?
Yes,
Yeah.
So you've essentially got 3 additional months. I mean, so if you did the numbers of the 1275 that it currently is, making it 15, well, I mean, leaving it at 50, I think putting it at 1575 and leaving it there probably makes sense to the number of the
Yeah.
seasonal
Okay.
in ratio.
Is that your motion, Ms. Wertz?
Yeah.
Yes,
And your second, Mr. Bessie?
Yes.
Excellent. Is there any further discussion on leaving that alone? And hearing none, Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
myself, yes, thank you very much. Uh, We need to authorize the inclusion of the rental registration reminder notice in the real estate tax bills. That is something that is required under the law. We have done it in the past. It saves postage, instead of 2 envelopes, it's 1 going to a location. May I have a motion?
Motion to do so.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on the motion? Thank you very much. Then I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
and Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
and myself, yes. Next would be accepted donation from Shaw's, not Stop and Shop, that's Scrivener's error, of $34 to the Wareham Free Library for the Wareham Free Library gift account. It's from the Give It Back Where It Counts program that Shaw's runs. May I have a motion to accept?
Make a motion to accept.
Is there a
Second.
motion made and seconded to accept the gift? Is there any further discussion on accepting the gift? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick.
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
myself, yes, thank you. Discussion and possible vote to approve the curbside billing opt-out and reduction fee applications of $1,348.17. May we have a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
myself, 500. We now are going to hear from Mr. Drainville, who I believe has been waiting in the wings. There you are. How are
Yes.
you?
Thank you.
Thank you. Would you introduce yourself and tell us why you're here?
Yes, my name is Mark Drainville. I work for GHD. We're a civil and environmental engineering company. We've been hired by the town to do a comprehensive wastewater management plan. I wanted to speak about that plan at a high level as we're just beginning the process. I think you have a copy of the presentation. Can I be allowed to share my screen?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Drainville.
Okay, sorry, just trying to reorient everything on the screen. Okay, well, thank you very much for allowing me to speak about this project. A couple of quick things about it. This is the comprehensive wastewater management plan is something that's required by the state by towns to identify wastewater needs. It's a plan that lasts approximately 20 years. And at the end of 20 years, you need to kind of reestablish your needs and priorities. And this is a vehicle by which the town would become eligible for different levels of funding as needs are identified and as you may pursue state funding. Okay, I'm going to go through a couple of topics: planning history. I'm going to talk a little bit about something called the Massachusetts Estuaries Project. Then I'll talk about the comprehensive wastewater management planning process itself, and then a project schedule. First, planning history. So the town of Wareham completed a comprehensive wastewater management plan back in March of 2002. The recommendations from this plan that were implemented included upgrades to the Wareham Water Pollution Control Facility. This particular document has a life of 20 years, as I mentioned earlier. The reason for the 20 years is because of just the general accuracy of planning over that period of time, and also the life of the equipment and processes that are implemented as part of this. New comprehensive plans are required at least every 20 years or more frequently if required, if dictated by changes in the community. So there are a few reasons why this planning process has initiated in town. I mean, we are at the end of the 20-year process, but also there are a couple of needs that have been identified, some relatively urgent needs. There's a sewer moratorium. The town has overcommitted on some of the wastewater flows. These flows have nearly crossed a threshold that would require a plan to be submitted to EPA. This plan that has been initiated would be a plan that could be submitted to EPA in the event that those flows cross the threshold. And the existing facility also needs to accommodate growth, which has been severely limited of late. Most equipment and processes have exceeded or are nearing the end of their life expectancy. And also relatively recently, maybe within the past 5 to 8 years, the Massachusetts Estuaries Project has identified nitrogen sensitive areas in the town. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail in a minute. But there are some upcoming regulations that are applicable to this that the state is, that are out in draft form right now. So the Massachusetts Estuaries Project, what this entails is that the state has been looking at approximately 80 watersheds in southeastern Massachusetts, looking at nitrogen issues or issues caused by nitrogen, primarily as a result of an overabundance of septic systems. And the septic systems have led to nitrogen leaching its way into the coastal ponds and some of the coastal rivers. These reports, the one on the right here, is the one that was issued for the town several years ago. And what these reports do is they come up with a maximum amount of nitrogen that can be discharged in a watershed. And we have to make sure that we don't exceed that, or else it'll cause issues with the watershed. Those issues could be a lack of dissolved oxygen, which can lead ultimately to fish kills. So it causes an environmental problem. A total maximum daily limit for nitrogen is expected to be established for the Wareham River, Broad Marsh, and Marks Cove, which was the subject of the Massachusetts Estuaries report issued for the town. So I'll talk a little bit about the comprehensive management planning process itself. The primary goals are to comprehensively and effectively manage wastewater and nutrients, in particular nitrogen, within the town of Wareham, to improve water quality, protect public health, and sustain and enhance the town's economic vitality and property values. Some initiatives related to this planning process: to initiate planning for nutrient impacted estuaries. That has to do with the Massachusetts Estuaries Project. To evaluate and recommend wastewater management solutions to include a combination of centralized collection treatment, on-site septic systems, more enhanced septic systems than you see currently, and then alternatives to sewering where applicable. And ultimately, the goal of this project is to determine the most cost-effective solution for wastewater needs. What we've done so far is develop what's called a plan of study. This is the first step in this process. It establishes an outline for the project and demonstrates that it meets the requirements of DEP for similar projects. A draft has been developed and will be the subject of a future public meeting. So the comprehensive wastewater management plan has 3 parts. I'm going to briefly describe each of the 3 parts. So the first one is a needs assessment, also called phase 1. It establishes the projected wastewater needs for the 20-year planning period. It has a number of different goals defining the wastewater management goals, initial assessment of the town's wastewater needs, evaluation of existing conditions, meaning existing infrastructure, review of regulatory requirements, those that are currently in effect and those that may be coming into effect, projection of future conditions, and a comparison of the goals to the limitations within the town. A couple of points of interest for the phase one is that we are going to need input from planning department and others to discuss growth projections. Because ultimately what we need to get from this phase one is how much wastewater needs to be managed to meet the town goals. So you have an existing wastewater treatment facility that has a certain amount of flow that it can treat. We need to figure out what kind of future needs your town will have so that it can be accommodated with the future infrastructure. Once the needs are established, then we're going to look at different alternatives to meet those needs. These different alternatives can range from typical infrastructure like wastewater treatment to on-site septic systems and other alternatives that we can look at. Some points of interest for the phase two. One of the major challenges is what to do with treated wastewater disposal. Right now you have a maximum amount of flow that you can send treated wastewater to the Agawam River, and we need to look and find alternatives to discharge outside of the river. Either increasing the flow slightly, which we think we might be able to do. We're in active discussions with the state about this. An ocean outfall has been looked at before. That's a costly option, but that's on the table at least as an option. And then groundwater disposal is another option that we're actively looking at right now. Again, this is to try and increase the amount of flow that can be treated through a centralized wastewater treatment facility. I'm hitting some of the highlights. I'm not talking about everything, but I'm just hitting some of the highlights in each of these phases. The final phase would come up with a recommended plan. It would detail what is recommended to meet the needs of the town over the next 20 years. Some points of interest with regard to this is that the recommended plan would need to consider how the recommended plan would fit into planning within the sewer department and the town, how we could potentially take advantage of current principal forgiveness options that are available through the state, as well as 0% financing that's available through the state. The public participation for this project is a very important part. There's two primary components. This project will go through what's called the MEPA process, the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act. And this is a vehicle by which the project can go through a public review. The MEPA department within the state is the kind of point at which we can distribute documents throughout the state to different agencies for review, as well as your neighbors. It's a if the project has the potential of creating certain environmental impacts, it's required to go through this process, but it's also a vehicle by which we can have very fixed timeframes for state reviews, which is very beneficial to get the project done in a timely manner. The other component to public participation would be various contacts within the town and meetings within the town. So providing update meetings through Board of Selectmen, sewer commissioners, as well as public hearings and meetings. This is a minimum. There's other opportunities like for the planning board and other boards we could potentially go before. We're also going to be looking for assistance from different boards, in particular planning and Board of Health, as we work our way through this project. And just a snapshot of the project schedule. It's approximately a year-long project, but there are different things that can happen throughout this project to be able to spearhead different efforts. The plan of study is something that we've just drafted, and we're going to be going through a public process through MEPA with that. We don't have to wait for that process to complete. We can concurrently start other phases of work, which we've started the phase one initiative already. We're looking to try to complete that by February, phase two by early next summer, and then phase three potentially by the end of the summer. So, and then we're going to have to go through a final MEPA process once the project has been approved by the town. Have a request here. we would like from you, the Board of Selectmen, to recognize the importance of this project. This is your plan. It's the town's plan, or it will be. And we'd ask you to encourage your boards to be engaged in this process, and for you to be engaged by allowing our continued attendance at your meetings, as well as having, at least one of your members to periodically attend our meetings. We will be sending out an invite to your board, as well as to other boards, to engage different boards to hear and to contribute to this process as we go along. Again, this was a high-level overview, but I just wanted to introduce it and kind of want to get out the importance of this project to the town. I'm happy to answer any questions or discuss anything. Tricia, yes?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. During one of your middle slides, you said you are currently in talks with the state right now. That's
Excuse me 1 second. Just make sure that you go through me, the chair, okay?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
It was Mr. Drainville as well. Sorry.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Through you, Ms. Whiteside. Mr. Drainville, which is a very interesting last name for the work you do. Several slides back, you mentioned that you're currently in discussions with the state, and I'm assuming that's specific to this Wareham project, but is it? I want to just verify if that's correct.
Yes, so the discussions started a few years ago, and we were asked to come back as we were more imminently in need of engaging them in modifying the permit. And so that's where we are right now. So we've already started discussions a few years ago.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Can I follow up on what Ms. Wertz just asked?
Yes.
How did you become aware that there was a change in our needs? Which I think is something you said, there was a change in the community needs. That was one of the first things you said.
Yeah, the conversation that happened a few years ago was in conjunction with the ocean outfall investigation that was occurring, and so it was part of an effort to investigate a regionalization of the Wareham facility. I think I did not present that to the board. I'm assuming that you had some presentations on that or have some awareness. If you don't, I could speak to it a little bit.
Please. We have 3 new members on this board, so I think it would be appropriate
Sure.
to touch briefly on it, Mr. Drainville.
Sure. So several years ago, the town benefited from a federal grant from the SNEP grant, Southern New England. I forget what it stands for, but it's a federal grant that was granted to look at a regional effort, a regionalization of the Wareham facility, regionalization in the sense of perhaps taking in flow from some of the neighboring communities, such as portions of Plymouth, portions of Marion, and also perhaps the Mass Maritime Academy, as well as perhaps more of Bourne. It was just looked at a conceptual level, and included in that, as the flows would be increasing potentially substantially, there was the investigation into an ocean outfall that potentially would go into the Cape Cod Canal. It was all looked at a conceptual level, meaning a very, very high level. And all of that was, I would say, 75% of the effort was funded through several federal grants. And as part of that effort, there were conversations with the state about potentially increasing the flow, increasing the discharge to the Agawam River. There was one discussion, but just a feel out kind of discussion with the state to see if they would potentially entertain it, if that makes sense.
So, Mr. Drainville, just so that we all are on the same page, the sewer commissioners, they're a separate sewer commissioners in the town of Wareham who are in fact in charge of the sewer. The Board of Selectmen are not.
Mhm.
And so were they involved in the discussions about the regional outfall? You know, were they aware of those presentations as well? And where are they in terms of you're presenting to them? Please.
So they were aware of this. One thing I need to say is that I didn't lead that effort. So I'm aware of it and we participated in it. But I did not personally do the presentation, so I can only talk so much about it. Okay. But they were absolutely aware of the, these federal grants that were provided and that the efforts that were underway for looking at that regionalization.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody, Mr. Slavin, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. I've been involved with this also with Mr. Gilberti, who is the chair of the SOAR Commission for quite a while. The grants were actually obtained through the Buzzards Bay Coalition, not through the town. They're the ones that received the money to do several studies. We met at the Maritime Academy probably, I'd say at least 5 or 6 times. We missed the opportunity to actually go ahead and do something initially because Route 6 and 28 were being dug up to be redone. And we had an opportunity to run the sewer lines back through Route 6 and 28, but we're unable to take advantage of that. And therefore, once they started the road construction, you have to wait 5 years before you can even consider doing anything at all. So that we lost that opportunity. We also talked about running the lines back to the Maritime Academy along the railroad tracks, and the Mass DOT rail denied us the right to do that as well. There's several issues that I still haven't got a straight answer on. We all know that we have a moratorium, which could kill any new business coming into town right now that needs sewer. So number one on the list there, which is a serious issue, is the TMDL, which you mentioned. When that comes out, which is I think it's 4 years late now coming from the state, could put severe restrictions on Wareham as far as allowable output, because that's what the output going into Buzzards Bay is about. And every community along Buzzards Bay is sitting there waiting for the axe to fall, basically. It's the best word to put down on what the TMDL is going to be. The other issue was the comprehensive wastewater management plan had Agawam Beach and several areas that were part of that plan. And when Guy Campino and I went to, I think it was EPA stuff over Middleborough, they said we could come up with a new comprehensive wastewater management plan, but would have to come up with a way of what we would sewer in addition, or basically to replace what was not being sewered at Agawam Beach in that area. So there's a lot of open areas here that still have never been finalized. And I asked the question before when they came up to us, Jimmy, and I think the sewer commissioners, and I asked a simple question: have we sat down with EPA actually and set up a meeting in order to discuss how we move forward? And the answer was no. So my concern is, as a selectman, are we going to be waiting 2, 3, 4, 5 years before we resolve this issue and have a moratorium during all that time? So that's where we're kind of at, and we haven't got answers anywhere at all at the Board of Selectmen level as to where the town's going. Thank you.
I could respond to at least part of that if I could.
Go ahead, Mr. Dranville.
So Mr. Slavin's correct that the TMDL has been on the back burner for some reason for some time. I have been inquiring about that of late, and I was told that that you may have a TMDL as soon as the end of this year, so that might be coming very, very soon. It's been promised, I know, before, so I can't say I'm promising it, but I was told that it is more imminent than it has been before. So we are hopeful we're going to get that soon. I will say that the report that you have that has been issued, that I showed a photograph of, does provide us with enough information to proceed with the planning project.
Who told you, excuse me, Mr. Dranville, who told you the plan might be ready by the end of the year?
I was told by the Buzzards Bay Coalition. I guess they have had some insight from the state in that arena. It was a representative at a town town meeting that we had several weeks ago. And I had asked the question of those who attended if anybody was aware, and I did get an indication from the Buzzard Bay Coalition.
Thank you. Any, Mr. Slavin, is your hand still up?
No, I'm going to lower it, but just so everybody knows, the Buzzard Bay Coalition over the last 4 years has promised it's coming at any time.
Right.
So unfortunately, I can't really accept much of what's said in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it that you need from us, Mr. Drainville?
You'll be hearing from us sometime next month, just requesting one of your members to attend a periodic meeting. We're going to try and hold our first one in December. So I'm not sure if we should go through you, the chair, and request that you assign someone as a representative. I'm not sure.
Yes, you need to go through me.
Okay. And we will do that.
Who's saying Alan?
I think Sandy.
I thought you were muted, sorry.
Sandy,
I apologize.
it's my boss. What can I tell you?
He thought he was muted.
Okay. So I'm confused. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure. Have you been to the sewer commissioners before you came here?
Sewer commissioners approved this, this project, so they are aware of this. We wanted to just present it to the Board of Selectmen because we wanted to have one of your members attend.
When did they approve it, sir?
Well, it went through them for the approval of the agreement, which would have been over the summer.
I'm going to ask a member of the sewer commissioners to please clarify that if she can. Can she, Mr. Slavin? Was it approved by them?
She says she cannot remember that.
We've had discussions on this project. I cannot remember the date. I have to look at my minutes.
So do you believe you approved it?
I believe we did. I can't tell you the specific meeting.
Okay.
I'm not hearing anything new than I didn't already know about.
Okay, so, but you believe that you did approve it way back when?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Madam Chair, if it's okay with you,
Yeah.
If you decide to go ahead, I'd be more than happy to continue what I've been doing on this area, meeting with them as well.
You just volunteered for something else.
I've been at this for 7 or 8 years now, so it's no big deal.
The garage is calling for you.
That's what. Yeah, the garage is probably warmer than it is in this room right now.
Is that why you had the hat on earlier? I'm sorry, we have degenerated. I'm sorry. Okay, so Mr. Drainville, I'm guessing that you will continue to work through Mr. Slavin to this board, and then when you need to come back to this board as a full board, he will let us know, or you'll let me know if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So can you back up a couple of slides when you did the time frame thingy? You know that's perfect. So plan of study. What does that mean?
A plan of study is it's essentially it's like a table of contents. It's an enhanced table of contents. It outlines the coverage of this report. It's a requirement of the state. They are going to review it and make sure it's in compliance with their expectations.
So they have a form that you got to do a punch list on.
Yeah, they actually have a document that describes what has to be included, and we have to take that and create an outline of the report.
Right. Okay. So they have given you the homework assignment, and your job is to answer all of the questions from the homework.
Sure. Yes.
Okay. February, phase 1 needs assessment report. What does that mean?
That means our goal is to have established the wastewater needs of the town. What that means is how much wastewater flow needs to be managed. Okay, so that would entail looking at the nitrogen sensitive areas in town to find out how much wastewater will need to be managed in order to be in compliance with a future TMDL. It would also entail having discussions with the planning department, perhaps the planning board, and trying to determine a proper amount of growth to accommodate in a wastewater facility, for example. So it's just trying to come up with how much wastewater will need to be managed.
Okay, and then the alternatives analysis report?
That would be looking at, there's more than just wastewater treatment facility. That's one way of treating wastewater or managing wastewater. You could potentially accommodate needs through enhanced on-site septic systems, and there are other options too. So we would just need to look at options that are available and narrow it down to practical alternatives, and those would be costed out in the final report.
Let me ask a question. In the outline, the plan of study outline, are you charged with dealing with the rising sea level and the reports that indicate about 1/3 of this town will be underwater in 50 years?
So we are charged with paying attention to what aspects of your infrastructure may be vulnerable to sea level rise. So when you say that amount of town would be in 50 years, you mean always be underwater or be vulnerable to flooding?
There are 2 reports that I've seen. One was from Massachusetts Audubon, I believe, and the other one, I believe, was our latest FEMA report. I don't even remember, but I've seen 2 that show that certain areas of this town will in fact be underwater, not just a high tide. They will be underwater.
Okay. Well, part of what we're doing is to make sure your vulnerable infrastructure would be accommodated for potential situations like that. And it's not only being it's kind of being susceptible to more intense storms, as well as velocity zones. So we do look at that as part of this report.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to grill this young man? Sorry, Mr. Drainville.
No, it's fine.
I hadn't thought about how it was a perfect name until Ms. Wertz mentioned it. And I
I
thought, well, that's really, really great.
It's almost, I just fell into this.
Are there any other questions from anybody? No? Okay. Mr. Drainville, I'm going to ask you to resend a copy of the report to my office because I don't remember getting it, but that doesn't mean anything.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
I may have, and I may not have picked it up.
So is it Cassandra? Is that who we
Yes,
sent it to?
Cassandra Slaney. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we will do that.
Thank you very much. Any
All right.
other questions of this young man? Okay. Good night, Mr. Drainville.
Thank you very much
Rest
for your
of the
time.
evening. Yep.
Bye.
Okay, there is no other town business under 48-hour business. So I guess, Mr. Sullivan, you've been playing with insulation. Installation of insulation.
Yeah, this is our rock wall insulation, sound dampening and fireproof, and we were testing it tonight and couldn't hear the TV upstairs, so it worked out really well. You can hear the kids. I mean, a 60-pound kid, it sounds like an elephant still, but yeah. So I don't have too much for you tonight. I did want to give you some sort of interesting news. So as you know, we've been doing the remembrance trees, and we had some set aside for the veterans, and that was going by the Veterans memorial over by Town Hall. And to be frank, there was, some people have been very generous, but there was not as much of the interest. And so we've pivoted with the help of Danny Warren. And sort of the eastern side of Bessie Park in that section. Mr. Warren has some electricity set up and some things he has planned. So we've been able to put in there roughly about 50 trees. You'll see where the mountings are in there now. So that's been great. We've had a waiting list for people that wanted to be in Bessie Park. So we're going to open that up. Those are flying off the shelf. So please, if you're interested in a tree over in Bessie Park, come on. That's the section that we have opened up, and we're really excited about it. So should be great. And having it really, besides the onset pier over at Bessie Park, keeping it there should be really good. So again, folks, those are going quickly now. So we had one family come in today that before we were able to make this pivot, I thought the poor things were going to cry. So if it means a lot to you, please go and reserve it now. So, but
And Mr. Sullivan, you had said last week or whenever we met, 1 tree per customer.
Yeah, we're trying to keep it to 1 tree per, if you will. You can obviously honor many people. Those trees that are put in that section, there's roughly 50 of them. All the proceeds from them, the net proceeds are going to the Kendrick House, so it will still honor for the veterans and such. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that. So we're excited and we hope to get that going. And again, we wouldn't have been able to do this so quickly without Mr. Warren's help, having the electricity set up over there. So trees are coming in later on this week, not too much later. So we'll get those, start setting them up, putting the netting on them, get the electricity going. The goal is to have them, by the end of this month, so that they're up and ready for the Christmas parade. So really excited about it and appreciate all the help. And again, without Mr. Menard and the staff at Municipal Maintenance, it just wouldn't work. And Olson's been fantastic. Again, Clive Olson from Olson's getting us the trees at cost. So really awesome community experience.
Thank you.
So I will leave on a happy note, if you will.
Awesome. Okay, we have some liaison and initiative reports, and I urge you to keep them brief. Mr. Bessie.
This is as brief as I can get. I'm all set for tonight.
Boy. Mr. Chadwick.
Nothing at this time.
That's wonderful. And Mr. Slavin. I can't hear you.
The wife is laughing again. What can I tell you?
Good.
Okay, he won't be brief. I'll do it as best I can. I'm sending off a note in a little while to everybody about the host community agreements with marijuana and stuff. This past week, we had, I think it's chapter 180 of 2022 of the wonderful acts that the House and Senate do, changing how the host agreement's going to work, even for those in place and everything else. So it's going to be interesting because they can void anything anytime they want, it looks like. And we'll see what happens there. Mr. Sullivan, I'm sure, is keeping up with it as well as Mr. Buckland. The Veterans Day event over at the ballpark, with the VFW went off very well. It was well done. Everybody it was an enjoyable time. And kind of promised that we would do a Veterans Day parade next year. So I got myself in trouble with that one. We'll see how that works out. The OBA had their annual meeting yesterday over at the Onset Bay Boathouse and stuff, or bathhouse, I should say. That again, another event that went well. They've increased their revenue substantially from last year, which was not easy considering COVID. And they're bringing almost every event back that they've had. Fireworks, they did announce definitely that will be at the Harvest Moon Festival in September, like we did this year. There will not be fireworks July 4th. just because of the availability of public safety help and, costs, et cetera. So it will be definitely, I think, September 23rd, if I remember right, is the date. And again, I really have to thank Kat Jones for what she does for that organization. I don't know how she does it, really. It's amazing how it works and how much of a workload she handles on that as well. And with that, I'm done.
That's it. Wonderful, Ms. Wertz, brief.
I'm speechless, period. No, I have nothing today.
Okay, great. And I don't either as well. Thank you very much. And we have some minutes, Ms. Wertz.
Yeah, we have the minutes for the meeting of September 27th, 2022. Make a motion that we accept them.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on those minutes? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
and Ms. Wertz.
Yes.
Myself, yes, 500. Done. And is there any other business to come before this wonderful body? I promised you 8:30. I lied.
Big
Mr.
time.
Slavin,
Well, I'm off to the garage to get warm and I'll make a motion to.
Second.
not debatable. I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
and myself. Yes. Good night, Wareham. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Good night.
And,